Hedy Habra is a poet, artist, and essayist. She has authored 4 poetry collections. Most recently, or did you ever see the other side? This was published by Press 3 in 2023. And it was a winner of the 2024 International Poetry Book Awards and also a finalist for the 2024 Eric Hoffer Poetry Awards. Her previous poetry collection, the Taste of the Earth, won the Silver Nautilus Award and honorable mention for the Eric Hoffer Book Award. Her book, Tea in Heliopolis, won the Best Book Award, and Under Brushstrokes, the 4th collection, was a finalist for the International Book Award. Her story collection, Flying Carpets, won the Arab American Book Awards honorable mention, and it was a finalist for the Eric Hoffer Award. She has published a book of criticism in Spanish entitled Mundos Alteros y Artísticos en Vargas Llosa. In English, that's The Alternate Worlds and Artistry of Vargas Llosa. A 21-time nominee for the Pushcart Prize and the Best of the Net, she's been the recipient of the Nazim Hikmet Award, and she's had multilingual work in numerous journals and anthologies. She has a website, which is www.hedyhabra.com. Please welcome Hedy Habra.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ed, for this wonderful introduction, and thank you all for coming. So I will go ahead and share screen. I have prepared a PowerPoint. Shall I just share screen, David?
Okay.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. So does everybody see it correctly? Because I have some interferences on my screen, but
I see it just fine.
okay. So
Hey, Camille.
this is the cover. Oops.
Hey, Camille.
And I've painted this. It's Chinese art. It's on rice paper. It's Chinese ink and watercolor. And I chose this painting for the cover because it shows a woman scenes from the back, so we can't see her face or her expression. And it seemed to me that it did fit with the title, or did you ever see the other side? And that title that begins, that is a question beginning with or, is being replicated throughout because every single poem follows the same pattern. The paintings that inspired me for this collection are mostly by women, but also by a few men, but mostly by contemporary artists and surrealists, such as Remedios Varo, who is a major influence on my work. And I do get my inspiration from different sorts of art, not only paintings, sculptures, installations. I have a little selection of it to show you. Right now, I'd like to talk about my early influences and my literary influences. This is a painting by my mother. She used to copy old masters in oils. And when I grew up in Heliopolis in Egypt, all the house was completely almost wallpapered by her paintings. This painting is very large, like a little more maybe than 2 meters by 3, or maybe less, more or less. And as I grew up in this house, I used to entertain a certain relationship with these characters. I used to imagine what they told each other. I used to try to engage in a dialogue with all of these characters, and it really not only instilled in me a passion for art, for painting, which I started painting soon after when I grew up, but also it has a great influence on my desire to write ekphrastically, to write poems inspired by painting. The other influence is Mario Vargas Llosa, the Peruvian Nobel laureate, who has written many ekphrastic novels, and in which many characters have erotic fantasies inspired by paintings. And also he has even an entire novel in which an entire character is inspired by a photograph. He also has another novel about Gauguin, in which he recreates Gauguin's creative process. So I just wanted to acknowledge his influence on my work. The first painting I am showing is by Remedios. I'm sorry, I skipped. I have to move that toolbar because I can't read the title with the toolbar on top. It's a painting by Remedios Varo, and it's called Disturbing Presence. Remedios Varo is a Spanish-Mexican artist, surrealist, and this painting inspired me a poem titled, or Did You Ever See the Other Side of Things? Or did you ever see the other side of things? Seated at her table, her fingertips run over the knots where branches once grew, feel the crevices of the aged oak's grain, its porous surface about to peel open, like the pages of a book. She watches wavy lines swirl and birds' eyes sprout in thread-like tendrils. Does a tree feel pain in its phantom limbs? Could the table remember the carpenter's hands that carved it with love? The many times it was stained and rubbed with oils? Would these hands erase the memory of trees pregnant with bird trills? And what of the movement of her pen, her unanswered questions, the songs she sang to herself? A heavy breath in the nape of her neck rarefies the air. The chair's damask fabric, woven with fleur-de-lis, disintegrates, scattering petals wet with tears. Her open scars exposed, she feels the pull of a body against hers, her hunger unveiled as the moment recedes. So we will take a quick question followed by a very quick answer, and then we leave the more detailed questions and answers at the end. Are there any questions, or shall we move on to the next painting and poem?
Go ahead and move on, Hedy.
Okay, so the next painting is also by Remedios Varo, who is a primary influence in my work. And this painting is titled Woman Leaving the Psychoanalyst. So this painting inspired me to write a prose poem. Or could I finally be allowed to leave my analyst? I am leaving his office with my hair standing on end. No iPhone at hand, or else that would have made a great selfie. I walk out with a steady stride, tired of these useless sessions. After all, am I not reconciled with my dark side? No more makeup to hide the once widening circles around my eyes. I'll let the gray show on my temples, allow my electric hair to rise and curl at will, catching sunlight and moonbeams in its spires. I don't need him anymore, but he doesn't seem to know it. There's still work to be done, he says, wants me back over and over again. I have no more stories to tell, no more foggy areas to recover, forge, and weld. Has he become addicted to my voice? Or does he see his own shadow reflected in my dreams? See, this is the story of my life. Analyzing instead of being analyzed, entertaining instead of being entertained. So I'll move to the next painting. This painting is by a Mexican artist, contemporary, called Cristina Frankov. It's titled De lo Eterno y lo Lúdico, serie Sembradores de Estrellas. From the eternal to the ludic, it is from the series Sowers of Stars. And this painting inspired me to write the following poem. Or don't be fooled by her self-righteousness. If you could only see her when she slips into her sleek pajamas and fights for hours with me, her alter ego, dressed in contrasting colors from head to toe. She favors the coolness of seashell and ivory tones, while my clothes are tainted with cravings, the shades of fire and blood. That's why I can't stand her political correctness, though we share the same umbilical cord and most of the time coexist harmoniously. Or is it because I usually fade within her during the day, a replica she carries within, folded in her pocket like a cardboard silhouette? Only at night does she allow me to materialize and sit next to her. Hours long, we ask each other the sempiternal question, que vuoi? Maybe she yearns to accept me, the way a terminally ill patient needs a blood transfusion or autologous stem cells. We coexist in constant contradiction. One of us wants to swallow the whole world, get up at dawn and run barefoot on the beach to catch the first rays of sun, while the other would rather lie down all day long and watch the sun set. So I'll move to the next painting. This is an installation by a Japanese artist called Shiharu Shiota. She has numerous installations that sometimes depict a boat and some other times doors. And she has used or collected thousands and thousands of keys for them. So this installation inspired me to write it is called The Locked Room, this particular installation with doors. And I have, it inspired me to write the following poem titled, Or How Do You Keep Track of All the Keys You Once Owned? Keys to unlock one's buried memories, keys to the family cottage you had to sell, keys that once opened different sized locks, keys that had to be changed after an infraction, keys that yearn for the doors they used to open, keys thrown into a deep well still oozing blood, keys to the palaces King Farouk owned in Egypt, keys to learning how to deal with oneself and others, keys to the meaning of feelings that you kept losing, keys to the safes holding papers that ruled your lives, keys kept in a jewelry box that must have mattered once, keys lost, forgotten, or treasured as a possible comeback, keys to the wrought iron patio gate half covered with jasmine, keys that opened the car door that led you straight to the beach, keys to dreams horned and ivory gates that keep getting mixed up, keys meant to reach the heart of a man before he changed the locks, keys you hold in your palm and run your fingers over and over again, keys to an old friend's house who once relied upon you to water her plants, keys passed on from generation to generation to reclaim the ancestral home, keys that you had to return to the hotel where you wished you spent a lifetime, keys to all the cars you've ever owned and led you through long forgotten crossroads, keys to the office you left carrying a cardboard box filled with what seemed important, keys to the wooden carved secretary your mother handed down to you that held no secret to her. Keys to the homes you kept leaving from country to country, from one neighborhood to the next. Shall I move, David? Or is there any comment?
Anyone have a question? I thought I might have seen Shutta a minute ago. You need to, there you go.
Yeah, I did have a question about the earlier two poems. I was just wondering why you decided to write those as prose poems.
That's a good question. Usually, prose poems come to me very naturally, like it seems like they write themselves. A prose poem comes to me in a single breath sometimes, and there is a kind of a rhythm that is it is hard to explain. It wasn't. I think the poem writes itself. It's not a decision I've made.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Hedy. Proceed.
Yes, I will proceed. There is I use a different. I love prose poetry because for me, prose poetry is like a certain square that mimics a canvas. So let's assume here I have the next painting also by Remedios Varo, or How Can We Ever Cut Down to the Bare Essentials is the poem that I wrote, and the painting is called Vagabond by Remedios Varo. Or How Can We Ever Cut Down to the Bare Essentials was also a prose poem. And for me, a prose poem is almost like a canvas, not necessarily when it is in two stanza. When it is in one stanza, it's almost like a canvas. And it's when you have read an ekphrastic poem and you go back and read and look at the painting again, there are always some traces of the poem that are going to be projected onto the painting too. So the painting Vagabond inspired me the following poem. Or how can we ever cut down to the bare essentials? He kept retreating from room to room, feeling the weight of all the furniture and mementos staring at him like deceased relatives. It was as though the house wrapped layers of time around him, confining him inside a pod about to burst open. For a while, he'd only use his bedroom and the kitchen. He eventually retreated to the sunroom. Its walls lined with bookshelves comforted him as he lay on the wicker couch opposite the bay window. He soon realized he needed fewer meals and only one change of clothes. Feathers seemed to grow out of his bones, filling him with a desire to embrace the movements of the wind. He tried to get rid of plants, of his archived papers, of the photos that couldn't find their place in the abandoned albums. He sorted out the books he knew he'd never read or reread. Finally, the day came when, unable to break all ties, he clung to his tabby, the photo of a woman, a purple-lipped Cattleya, a few books, anything he could hide under his strong wings, slammed the door, and left. The following poem is by an American, the painting is by an American painter called Juanita Guccione. And this painting is called 3 Women and 3 Owls. And there were several elements in this painting that could have inspired me to write maybe four poems, but I decided to write one pantoum this time. And the pantoum is titled, Or Can't You See How We're Weaving Ourselves Tight? And the poem is in the first person, the second person, and also the first person plural. So there is a shift because I couldn't decide if I was looking at three different persons on the beach or if this represented the three different facets of the same woman at different stages of her life. So here is the pantoum that I've written in response. Or can't you see how we're weaving ourselves tight? Didn't you think you'd soar high up when you wore a miniskirt? I lowered my hemline, surrendering to ghost owls' hoots, following the rhythm of my elders' everlasting refrains. When she visited the Louvre, she wanted to wear her skin bare. I lowered my hemline, surrendering to ghosts owls' hoots, wore a keychain around my wrist that didn't open any doors. When she visited the Louvre, she wanted to wear her skin bare, chest open to the drifts of wind as she'd march with Delacroix's banner. Wore a keychain around my wrist that didn't open any doors, afraid to face the black sun of melancholy sung by Gérard de Nerval, chest open to the drifts of wind as she'd march with Delacroix's banner. She enters the triple dance, a sarong loosely wrapped around her hips. Afraid to face the black sun of melancholy, sung by Gérard de Nerval, I conjure my younger self steps, eager to unlock the darkness. She enters the triple dance, a sarong loosely wrapped around her hips. The three of us dive into the emerald waters under the blackened sun. I conjure my younger self steps, eager to unlock the darkness. You didn't soar high up, still unable to satisfy your hunger. The three of us dive into the emerald waters under the blackened sun, united at last in our quest for meaning, weaving ourselves tight. So if there are no questions, I will proceed. And we're back now.
I think we have Ed with a question.
Any
You have to
questions?
unmute, Ed. Ed, you have to unmute.
Yeah, what would you,
Ed, you're muted still. You're still muted, Ed.
yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, okay, now I think you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Would you put that last picture up? Yes. So you've got three owls and three fish, and there's something about diving into the water. Oh, and three birds. What is the relationship of those images, those four images in threes, as they are represented in your poem? I mean, were you conscious of the parallelism there?
Yes, as I said, I imagine that they were three friends, or they could be a representation of the same person at different stages of her life. And so what I thought was like a kind of a dialogue, each one addressing the other. You did that. You know, you dressed up in a certain way. You one of them was more aggressive and with the bare chest. Another one.
Their legs.
So yeah, I tried to find some symbolism to the keychain worn as a bracelet. What inspired me also was that black sun, and I thought of the sonnet by Gérard de Nerval about one of the recurrent themes in his poetry is the black sun of melancholy, and so also Juanita Guccione has a black sun in most of her paintings. So Yeah, I responded to an overall impression. As I said, one could write several poems inspired by this painting because there are so many elements. Because when I write an ekphrastic poem, I do not aim at describing the painting. I respond to the painting with a poem according to either my imagination or to the as for example, the memories that trigger, which makes the poem become more personal. And in my collection, now I'm giving a presentation. I'm showing the painting, and then I'm showing the poem.
Mhm.
But in my collection, I do not have in every page any reference to the artists. The poems are sequenced according to the poem themselves, to the words, to the sequence of words and the themes. And there is an index at the end referencing the paintings and the artists. And so I'm offering, my aim is to offer the reader a double reading, to
Mhm.
first focus on the words and imagine whatever they want. And then if they're interested, they can look up the painting and then reread the poem and get a totally different impression.
Yeah, I see. So I saw a boat there. You you had nothing in the poem for that.
No, because then it will become, I have enough to write a short story about it.
Yes, okay. All right.
Because there were lots of elements, but
Yes.
yeah, what struck me was the difference between the three women and their closeness at the same time. That's why they are weaving each other, or one of them says, or can't you see how we're weaving ourselves tight? So the different facets of a person, we go through life, we play different roles, but we're still the same person. But throughout life, we have not been always the same goddess or the same person.
Mhm.
And this is a kind of reconciliation in my mind of the different stages of life.
And is the Delacroix banner that famous painting of liberty? Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
la liberté guidant le peuple, guiding the people, liberty guiding the people with her bare chest.
Yeah.
I thought of the painting when I saw this painting. So
Thank
this
you,
is
Ed.
you. Thank you very much. Sorry, I clicked. I closed my own video. So this is a painting by Remedios Varo, and it's called The Souls of the Mountains. And it inspired me another pantoum. And this time, many women will relate to this pantoum. Or did you ever wonder what it's like to have hot flashes? Imagine a nebulous landscape covered with budding volcanoes. See yourself emerge from one of its peaks, head heavy with slumber. Gasping in the rarefied air, you enter a liminal space where unlucky few, forever trapped past conception, are condemned to parthenogenesis. See yourself emerge from one of its peaks, head heavy with slumber. Think of your skin as a primed canvas, permeable to imprints, forever trapped past conception, condemned to parthenogenesis. See how the change of seasons leaves indelible marks all over your body. Think of your skin as a primed canvas, permeable to imprints. You yearn for the sight of a veil billowing on a deserted deck's caravan. See how the change of seasons leaves indelible marks all over your body, like the sfumato created by the passage of a candle over moist paper or canvas. You yearn for the sight of a veil billowing on a deserted deck's caravan. Suddenly, a cooling current lassos drifts, unfurling into ashen flames, like the sfumato created by the passage of a candle over moist paper or canvas, or a haze hiding a palimpsest of thoughts carried by wind-swept fumes. Shall I move on?
Yeah, sure, Hedy, move on.
Okay, now we're going to see the art of a friend of mine, a contemporary exile from Lebanon, who is extremely famous. This painting is in the Kennedy Center. Her I muted myself. So her name is Helen Zugaib. She's very famous. And this painting is called Generations Lost. And it inspired me to write a poem called, Or Have You Ever Noticed Erasure Patterns Within Fractals? And I'll let you look at the painting a little bit before we move to the poem. Or have you ever noticed erasure patterns within fractals? Scattered on a multifaceted quilted palm, women's faces emerge, each as though from the center of a lotus about to drown before sunset. Eyes lined with coal look alike. Their unanswered quest blurs the lines on the receding oval faces. In midst of that fractal fragmentation, some hands stand out holding a blank sheet of paper. Or were they once photographs of loved ones, so old the image was erased by indifference, as life goes by with its dismembered seasons, mixed pell-mell with gouache on that canvas, like in a kaleidoscope, constantly reshuffling its patterns, relying upon the onlooker to revisit the artist's gaze over the drowning faces. If you need at one moment and one to look at a painting again, let me know. I can always go back. So I think we can move forward if there, yes, Ed?
Ed Morin? You have to unmute, Ed.
Unmute and it won't do. Oh, now it did. Okay. They're holding, it looks as if they're holding pieces of paper like sheet music or something. How do you interpret that?
What I interpreted was the following. I said that in midst of that fractal fragmentation, some hands stand out holding a blank sheet
There you are.
of paper.
Okay. Yeah.
Or
I
were
see.
they once photographs of loved ones? So old the image was erased by indifference. I was thinking about people who have lost their loved ones because of war or exile, and they're looking for them, but to no avail, like those women in Argentina that keep walking with the photographs of their the disappeared. So that's what I thought.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Okay, so the next one is a sculpture for a change. I have many different artworks, but for this presentation, of course, I cannot review them all, but this is a sculpture. I love this sculpture. I found it very inspiring. It's by a very famous American sculptor called Paige Bradley, and it's called Expansion. So after she had finished the sculpture, it broke. So she put it back together and put a light in it. And it gave the sculpture a totally different meaning. And this is what I have. The poem that I wrote is titled, Or What If Scars Would Suddenly Become Translucent? The poem has an epigraph by Hafiz. I wish that I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. Did the Persian poet mean that it would take a special viewer to perceive the truth within? We were taught to hide our sorrow, forget and store grief in drawers. We learn to cover our imperfections with makeup, our disappointments under a smile. We showcased our very best with trompe-l'oeil pleated skirts. Wouldn't the art of concealing allow pain to grow insidiously, preventing the mind from exploring one's rocky shores and inner landscapes? Paige Bradley remembered the broken shards of a nude woman's sculpture seated in a lotus position. At night, a light radiates from its core through seam lines. Each crack, a lightning, a victory. The way Japanese kintsukuroi mends fragments of a broken vessel with molten gold. The repairing of shattered tesserae, expressing hurt as renewal. And what if invisible scars reclaimed their corporeality by being tattooed all over the body, or materialized through translucent interstices, letting light out, revealing the archaeology of pain? Shall I move forward?
Yeah, go ahead, Hedy.
Okay, so we'll move to something quite different. And this is back to Remedios Varo. And it's called The Farewell. I'll let you look at the painting a little bit. The Farewell, and I wrote a poem titled, "Or Did You Really Think It Was the Path of No Return?" Or did you really think it was the path of no return? When we started walking along the winding road of separation, did you ever wonder if our shadows weren't reluctant to follow? What if they'd reclaim a life of their own, decide to concoct a different ending to our story, loosen their chains one by one? What if they might have stretched and stretched, retracing our footsteps towards the place where words were last spoken or omitted? And what if then, without restraint, without shame, pride aside, they would have wrapped themselves around each other in swirls tighter than the twists of a rope, become braided wicks awaiting to be lit, linger back there with no witness save perhaps an alley cat, a stray dog, or a lost sparrow? Let me know if you would like to see the painting again.
Go ahead and
So-
move on, Hedy.
We can move.
Yep, move on.
Okay, this is
One moment, Hedy. We have a request to see the painting again.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have something quite different. It's a painting, but it's called a visual score by a jazz musician from Chicago called Wadada Leo Smith. And he called this painting Red Balance Visual Score. He came to Kalamazoo, to the Kalamazoo Art Institute, had a show of what he called visual scores. And I wrote numerous poems inspired by these visual scores, which in many ways, not necessarily in this one, combined music and visuals. So this poem inspired me to write the following poem. Or why would anyone want to draw a keyhole? This is not the outline of a silhouette. I am drawing a keyhole to find my way out of my own cell. This is the black silk thread spun by the ink brush rising out of sweat and blood. And I think we can go to the last poem in the collection, in the presentation today. And this last poem happens to be the last poem in my collection, in my book. It is titled Birthday, and it is by a very famous American painter called Dorothea Tanning. I'm very drawn to the surrealists, and I love Dorothea Tanning, Remedios Varo, and numerous other of their others that are also surrealists. So this painting inspired me to write the following poem. Or did you think I'd never find the way out? It took me a while to wake up from a life not lived. I'd lost count of hours lying on a bed of algae. Not an Ophelia by vocation, I tear open my silk shirt, free my mind from layers of false pretense. The sound of a voice startles me with words, strange as a shooting star landing on my lap. Walking through endless corridors, I open door after door after door, find myself squeezed within each paneling as though framed within my past in a surplus, paso doble solo, one step forward, another backwards. I move in the dense air as in a dry aquarium. The last door faces a mirror outlining a woman I never knew. So I can stop share, I think, because that was the last poem.